This is my journey.
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 This is my journey with jazz. All right, this is Jazz and the World Part 2, little kiddies. Now we're gonna focus on a couple little things here. Number one, how this jazz has always been influenced by Africa because of the drumming that was found in the Caribbean and those African rhythms that were preserved. And then you had the repatriation of some Americans, former slaves, when they re-established themselves in Africa in the form of a country called Liberia. Yeah, so you had that cross-pollination. By the 60s, jazz is happening in Africa, and you got two people who leave Africa and come to the United States, and that was Hugh Masekela and Miriam Makeba. Yeah, Miriam Makeba was called the Queen of African Jazz. That is Miriam Makeba, and she did marry Hugh Masekela. Remember, the Queen of Jazz. Now, we also had the influence of Brazil, and this was through Jobim, Antonio Carlos Jobim, who brought the bossa nova influence into jazz, especially with the album he did with Stan Getz that featured songs like Girl from Ipanema, oh yeah, and that wonderful singer Astrid Gilberto. So please remember, Miriam Makeba, Queen of African Jazz, and Antonio Carlos Jobim, the king of bossa nova and Brazilian jazz. Oh yeah, and now we're done with our conversation about jazz and the world, baby. Thank you very much. Little kiddies, I hope you've had some fun.
You know, I play an Afro-Cuban invented instrument, the icamo, or they call it the conga, which came over from Africa, the idea, because Africans didn't bring these drums with them. But it was a reinvention by Afro-Cubans in the island of Cuba. My instrument was considered exotic in the 40s and 50s. Now it's mainstream in jazz and American music. You can't hear a band or anything without hearing this thing. Can't think of Marvin Gaye without hearing that conga beat. You can't hear Motown without hearing that conga beat, the Jackson 5, you know? Or what Chick Corea did with Ayerto, which had Brazilian and Latin percussionists there, you know, propelling the music.
Being that jazz is an original art form and was created here, we've had the luxury of taking from so many different players from around the world. So it would be really hard to say like what the sound of music would be without some of our favorite composers, arrangers, and artists from around the world. They're so much a part of everything that we do.
Latin American music, the bass has more of a percussive approach, just like in Brazilian music. In fact, in Brazilian music, you get, there was a big drum called the surdo, which actually played this pattern, and that's kind of what the bass plays on that. Same thing with Afro-Cuban music, you get syncopated bass lines, which means that the rhythm is a little bit different than what you would expect with the 4 on the beat in jazz.
I think it's grown as years gone by. People get more creative. I've seen guys like Alex Acuna, he plays he plays set just like he plays hand drums, and both at the same time. So I think it's evolved and it keeps evolving, and the new generation just keeps coming up with brand new ideas of how to innovate the drum and move it forward into what we do. And that's what I look forward to, watching the younger guys come up with better and brighter ideas to do what we do.
My band, the Latin Jazz Knights, we play Latin jazz music, which is many different forms of jazz. It's Brazilian, it's including bossa novas, to Afro-Caribbean, to rumba, to song, to swing, you know, these things, these congas, melodically, harmonically, just coming together. I usually play 4, that's my preference, but 3's fine, but 4 I can add that extra D bottom, you know, and just perform in that manner.
And then the pianist is there to kind of reinforce the rhythmic elements of the music. And you know, one of the best pianists of Brazilian music is Antonio Carlos Jobim. And that record of Stan Getz and João Gilberto, it features Tom Jobim, but it's not his record. He's not taking the lead. He is like Count Basie in a way, picking his spots. Just when he comes in, it's just the right place with the right voicings, more in the high end of the piano. You hardly know he's there, but when you hear him, you go, wow, that was the perfect place to play, to add a little color, a little something to create contrast with what the other musicians are doing.
I got blown away when I heard Irakere, 1979 live. Then they won the Grammy Award for Latin recording in 1980, the Black Mass, you know.
I know that Michel Camilo is from the Dominican Republic, and his album, when I first heard it, was what impacted me the most was Triángulo, with Anthony Jackson and Dave Weckl. And that trio, and just the composition of his playing, really, not just the drumming part, not the bass part, but his composition of the way he thought with the Afro-Cuban type jazz thing, it just opened up my mind. I must have been like 12 years old when I heard this record, and it just blew me away.
The first thing that comes to mind is Miles Davis' Sketches of Spain. I know he's an American artist, but that album was important. Sketches of Spain was part of a collaboration that Miles did with Gil Evans, where they created 4 albums that are just groundbreaking in my estimation. There was Sketches of Spain, there was Miles Davis, Miles Ahead, music that was themed from the movie Porgy and Bess, so I would definitely recommend checking out that album series.
So one of my favorite recordings actually is by a guitarist from Spain called Paco de Lucia. He's a very traditional player, but he made a great album in 1981 called Solo Quiero Caminar, which translates to I Just Want to Walk. And it has a very big flamenco sound, but it also is influenced by jazz quite a bit. That record is one of my favorites.
One of my favorite non-American recordings of jazz is called Gilberto Getz, which is Stan Getz, an American saxophonist, went to Brazil to work with João Gilberto. He's an incredible guitarist and singer and performer of the great bossa nova and samba styles that Antonio Carlos Jobim was a proponent of, imbuing them with jazz. So it's really incredible, this collaboration between America and Brazil to create a new style, Brazilian jazz.
There's an artist by the name of Gonzalo Rubalcaba, piano player from Cuba, and he's got an album called Giraldilla. And it's like the most over-the-top fusion of everything. You know, it's so unbelievably smart, great musicians, you know. It has to be that one, Giraldilla. So, Gonzalo Rubalcaba, my man.
My journey with jazz, yeah, baby.